You're listening to the tale of two podcasters from the 2007 RAB TGO Challenge, brought to you by the outdoorsStation.co.uk.
This podcast is just one of a special series produced from a wealth of recordings made in May 2007 by two backpackers, Andy Howell and me, Bob Cartwright, as we made our way via two different routes from the west to the east coast of Scotland as part of the 2007 RAB TGO Challenge.
Here at RAB, we're pleased to be involved in the TGO Challenge, which is the perfect testing ground for our clothing and sleeping bags. RAB has a Scottish heritage and over 25 years' experience of making gear that performs in the varied weather of the Highlands, as well as gear for the highest peaks in the Himalaya.
Co-sponsors TGO, the Great Outdoors magazine, have been behind this May event since its inception in 1980. The framework and principle is totally unique. It isn't a race or a competition of any kind. The objective is to foster good fellowship amongst walkers within the framework of a challenging 200-mile expedition. The start consists of a series of sign-out locations on the west coast, from Torridon in the north down to Ardrishaig in the south. Each challenger, solo, couple or group makes their way via a high route, a low route or a mixture of the two across Scotland to finish anywhere between Arbroath and Fraserburgh on the east coast. There's a set 2-week window to do this in, and each participant submits their route for inspection prior to departure for safety and advice reasons. The places, however, are limited to 300, and details about the event, entry forms, past stories and photographs can be found in the October issue of TGO magazine and on their website. Each participant makes the challenge as easy or as hard as they wish. The extremes can be a remote high route, crossing wild country and not seeing another soul for days on end. Or a route which takes in the many social events, perhaps not camping at all and just using established accommodation all the way. Most people do a mixture of the two in different forms. This year I started with my wife Rose in the beautiful village of Plockton, and Andy Howell with his partner Kate started from Strathcarron. We both carried recorders with us to capture our audio diaries and conversations which took place with other walkers as well as locals as we made our way to the east coast. Yes, this is the tale and adventures of two podcasters.
Well, the last couple of days have been eventful towards the end of the challenge. Yesterday we left Clover, climbed high through the forests onto the ridges, walked all the way around the ridges there with Bob and Lee and Colin, and then dropped down to Lochley and had a lovely kind of late afternoon amble around the loch in beautiful sunshine. And we got to Tarfside at about 6 o'clock in the evening, and were a bit surprised when they offered us a bed for the night, which we took, and certainly unexpected pleasure. But you enjoyed Tarfside, didn't you?
Tarfside was great. I hadn't really known what to expect. I'd heard a lot of people talking about it, and it was obviously a bit of a challenge institution, but when we walked in the door and suddenly I had a cup of tea thrust into my hand, and it was in a real mug and it had real milk in it, and suddenly it was just, everything seemed so much better, and there were these amazing women doing an incredible job and keeping everybody, just supplying exactly what they needed in terms of tea and biscuits and beer and what have you, and it was just great. And then to have the opportunity, we were quite tired, and they obviously caught us at a weak point, as it were, because the thought of a bed for the night suddenly just seemed incredibly tempting, and indeed it was very welcome.
The problem with the hospitality at Tarfside is that you sit there and you think, well, I'm finished now. You sit there in comfort, around that table, having your cups of tea, and then spend the evening chatting away to people. Then go to a bunk, and the next day you really feel you finished. So I sat there with Alan Sloman last night to the early hours and told him that we were going to go up through Char, through the Fetteresso. Alan then spent the next half an hour saying to me, oh, you don't want to do that. It's not, describing it in quite graphic terms. So as a result, we've thought, oh no, it's finished now. So we've taken the easy option and walked alongside the River Mark into Edsall and went out the Northwater Bridge campsite. But it's a different kind of landscape, but it's still a very, very beautiful walk, isn't it?
Yeah, it's been a great day. I've joked a few times that Tarfside made us soft because we've had a very gentle sort of a day. The walk into Edsall this morning was just like a Sunday afternoon stroll along by the river. It was lovely, and then a very nice cafe there and a lovely lunch, and then a bit of a long straight. I've had a very long straight road to take us to this nice pleasant campsite. But yeah, no, it's been a really nice, gentle day. But it does really feel like the challenge is very much drawing to a close, and the conversations with people are reflecting back on the, some of the hard times that you've had and what have been the highs and what have been the lows. But it's very much a looking back kind of discussions that we're having with people now.
So we're only a couple of hours away from the coast now. The Northwest Highlands seems a long, long time ago now.
Yeah, I've been keeping a little note of what we've been doing each day, and I was just looking back over it earlier on this afternoon and reminding myself of how it was in the beginning. And it seems an age ago, it seems a lifetime ago, not just a couple of weeks.
Well, we've had a nice evening. This has been about the first evening so far that it's been warm enough and sunny enough to sit outside and chat to other campers on the site. And so perhaps a fitting end to the last real camping en route. And tomorrow it'll be Montrose and Montrose campsite.
Well, it's 6 o'clock now, I think. Yeah, 6 o'clock, and we're down at Spittal Cott, where we arrived much earlier this afternoon, around 3 o'clock. And since then we've been putting the tents up and had a little snack to eat and all had a doze in the sunshine. And it has been a fairly sunny afternoon, very warm. And in fact, what's woken me up is the fact the sun went in and all of a sudden it got chilly. And I realised I hadn't done an update to finish, the last few days off, really. So we had a fairly good walk. We left the breakfast retreat there at about 9 o'clock-ish and wandered down the road and then took the path up and over, which has been improved, which we're guessing for stalking season. And in fact, the path was being worked on at the moment, so anybody thinking of coming that way, it's still slightly rough on the top. And they've added an electric fence next to the deer fence, which is a slight inconvenience. But the rest of it is a fairly easy walk, and we came via Charbothy down to Spittal Cott, as I say, where there's a lovely camping spot by the river, and better still when the weather's like this. So it's been a very, very good day. Another thing that's just happened, the two Italian guys, they've just arrived. They set off just after us, but sadly with a slight bit of unfortunate accident with a map, and found themselves back on the Tarfside Road, having climbed up. They climbed down the wrong valley and then had to climb back up again. So they've done the journey twice, bless them, but they've arrived exhausted and having a welcome rest in the sun. And I thought it might be a time to do a gear review, just to pass the time really and help people improve slightly or consider what items to take. So I thought I'd go through what I've got with me from start to finish and make some suggestions what I would change with this gear, even though some of it I brought along for testing, what I actually would do if I was being a bit more ruthless, and where I could save weight. So if you don't mind, we'll have a gear moment for a few moments. The first thing is the tent. As you know, I've got the Go Light Hut 2, which is a huge amount of space for one, and certainly adequate for two, really. It's a tarp tent, so which means it's just the fly sheet, if you like. There's no base to it at all. What I'd say about this tent is it's performed fantastically in the weather. It hasn't let me down at all. However, it's very short on ventilation, and so when it's very, very humid underneath the tent, or very still night, it's wise to leave the door open to get some ventilation. But that hasn't really happened because it has been fairly blustery at times. So there has been times there's a bit of condensation inside. Now I guess this might happen, and I brought along an old Outdoor Designs Alpine bivy bag that's got a Gore-Tex top and a waterproof base. And inside that I put my Rab Quantum 400 sleeping bag on top of a Thermarest ProLite 3 short, and I've also got an inflatable sit mat as well, which I use for comfort when sitting around, and also in conjunction when I'm sleeping. Now what I would say, this combination, what I've also brought as well is a very small sheet of ground sheet, which I put down once I've got the tent up, and I then unload the contents of my rucksack onto this ground sheet. The other night when we were in the woods, it was much longer grass, and it was very wet grass when we pitched, so consequently the inside of the tent was very humid, and everything sort of got damp at one stage. And I'm putting that down to the fact that, you can hear the wind there picking up, I put that down to the fact that really the tent could do with some kind of ground sheet, really, which would eliminate both my little extra piece and also the need for this bivy bag. So if I was going to do this again, I would probably somehow organise myself a large, lightweight ground cover, which I could attach shock cord to for each corner and clip into the pegs. And that would allow me then to spread myself out inside the bivy tent, and I probably wouldn't need a Gore-Tex bivy bag, or any bivy bag at all, really. Possibly a light one, just to add a little bit more insulation, and if there was a danger of condensation, so the bag didn't get wet. But with these Pertex Quantum bags, they're water resistant anyway, and certainly that morning when it was damp, yes, it was slightly damp, but it didn't really penetrate the down too much and affect the warmth of the bag. So that would be my conclusion here. But whatever sort of tent system or tarp system you use, I think a ground sheet would be advisable, because of the type of grass that you could be camping on. At the moment it's very, very short grass. It's perfect size. It's almost like a lawn, actually, where the sheep have been, so it's very short. But we have camped in a whole variety of different things, and certainly when it's you're stuck for space and you have to camp over divots and that sort of stuff, a ground sheet is useful, not to lose things and also keep the mud off things. The sleeping method I use, I put my clothes that I'm wearing into the Exped waterproof roll top bag that the sleeping bag came in, and use that as a pillow. I then slide the 3/4 length ProLite down a bit so it starts at my shoulders where the pressure point is, and then I use the inflatable sit mat, which is a little Exped one. I actually just lean up and slide that under where my feet touch the ground, underneath the bivy bag there, and that allows me then the key pressure points, a very comfortable night's sleep, actually, shoulders, backside and heels, the three main points touching the ground, and they're well cushioned. So that covers that. The only other thing I would say probably is that I would change my spare clothes that I've got, which is a Montaigne Terra tee, which is a long sleeve tee, a pair of Ron Hills, the Long John Ron Hills, a nylon type. I would change those for silk. That's much smaller and much lighter, and also probably something like the Montaigne wind shirt pants, the trousers, which would match the wind shirt top, as it were, so that you had something sort of respectable if you had to put an extra pair on while you were washing your clothes and so on. But that would reduce the bulk of those clothes down. On the clothing front, let me just run through what I've done again and what suggestions I would make for myself to improve. I'm certainly of the thought that I prefer to have a spare set of clothes for safety purposes. Also, I like to feel sort of tidy, as it were, if I have to get out of dirty clothes and so on. So I like to have something I can wear out, as opposed to just in the tent. So I have got 3 pairs of the Lightfoot socks, which are sort of the X-Socks variety, and I've got a pair of the sealskins. The sealskins I found useful for when I am in camp. I've washed my feet, I've cleaned everything, and then I want to use my trainers, my Terox, to walk about the camp and not obviously get my feet wet again. So that's where the waterproof socks have come in useful, no other reason. I've got the 3 pairs of socks, as I say. I would change that to 2 pairs of socks. So I'd have 2 pairs of socks and the sealskins, and I would wash my socks, if possible, every night, if I had chance to dry them, as I'm doing so at the moment, on the back of the tent. Otherwise they would just stay unwashed for a few days and I'll just rotate them. Then I've got my Terrapant trousers, the Montane Terrapants. As was said before, they just seem to be absolutely perfect for hiking. Certainly great at keeping the wind out, and certainly a lot of wet weather as well, and they dry very quickly. They also vent very easily as well, so a great pair of trousers. I wouldn't change those. The Bionic Tee, which is the Merino Wool Mix Montane t-shirt, again, that has been my daily shirt. I've washed it once in the 2 weeks, and it doesn't pong at all, so sort of fairly happy with that. Then I've got the Montane Kinetic sort of pullover mid-layer, if you like. That performs very, very well. It's a nice stretch top. It's not as warm as a 100 Polartec 100 top, and I'm glad it isn't, because it's certainly plenty warm enough for when you're hiking and carrying a load and so on, and it gets rid of the moisture very, very quickly, so I wouldn't change that. Then over the top of that, I've now got the Montane again, Lightspeed wind shirt. Now this is the wind shirt with a full-length zip on it and a hood. And the hood has proved itself to be invaluable. Normally I just use the pullover wind shirt, which is fantastic, but when it has been the sharp cold wind, and I've been wearing either just a buff or a basic headwear, it saves having to stop and put on a mountain hat when you pull on the wind shirt hood. So I'd say the wind shirt hood and the full zip have been great for venting and so on, so absolutely perfect. And as I say, in conjunction with a pair of Montane wind shirt trousers, should the need be a cold wind and not bad weather, a great combination. So I'm happy with that. On the spare clothes front, as I said, I would suggest, in this case I've brought the Ron Hills and so on. I'd change that to silks and make that much lighter, and that would reduce the bulk of my spare clothes down. I also brought the canoe shoes with me, which have proved to be not needed, to be all honest, on this trip. I took those for river crossings when I wore boots, and because I'd taken the Terox for the first time this time, I brought them just in case my feet needed a change of footwear in the evenings when I was sort of pottering around camp or whatever. I've used them because they were there, but I could quite happily have done without them, so that's another ½ kilo gone. I could easily get rid of those. The item that I wouldn't get rid of, and I'd thoroughly recommend everybody has something of this nature, is my Clatermanson down smock. The down smock, down jacket, down gilet, whatever your choice is absolutely vital, and it works really efficiently when you've got just a simple base layer on. I put it on top of my wind shirt, on top of my kinetic shirt, on top of my base layer, so as a 4th layer, if you like. And it actually didn't heat up and keep me as warm as when I just used it with a base layer, such is the nature of down and so on. So I would say to people that they really do need a down layer of some kind. And of course, if it's really, really cold in the sleeping bag at night, you can add that to your sleeping system as well. And that will improve things, so that's good. There's also my shorts in the spare clothing bag, and for the last 2 years I've never worn them. And I suppose you could argue really that the weather hasn't been as good as it was the first year we did it, so manage without those. And if I did need shorts, I could buy some on the way over, because there's plenty of little shops really where you could get a pair of shorts should you need them. Just looking around this pile of bits here. The other thing that I did mention before, which I have brought, were these raid light gaiters, running gaiters, which are designed to stop sand getting into your shoes, your running shoes. I've used these in conjunction with the Terox when going across heather, and it's worked very well to stop the heather and bits of rubbish getting into your shoes and muck and so on. Certainly it would have been more useful in the first couple of days when I'd forgotten I'd got them, stupidly, and because that was when I kept stopping with, and I had really wet muddy socks with lots of bits of heather in there. But I found today, when the weather has actually been pretty good all day long, there hasn't been any rain at all, and we only had a bit of heather to go across. They were useful during the heather section, but really the rest of the time they actually kept my heat into my feet, which wasn't a good thing. I should have taken them off and let my feet cool a lot more. So they have their uses if you're heather bashing, but otherwise I wouldn't wear them. But I think what I'm saying is that they could certainly they have a space in my rucksack. Now, what else have we got? Wash kit. Wash kits. It's just a small bag for my wash kit. Absolutely vital is the who makes that? The MSR micro towel. That is very, very tiny, very light, and has been brilliant wherever I've used it. I've washed it myself and just hung that on the tent, and in 5 minutes it's dry. So it's a very small towel and very functional. Then I've got some Mountain Suds, which is a half-empty bottle of Mountain Suds, and I've used a few cc's of that, I suppose. That's inside a little Alexac bag, just in case it gets a bit soapy. That's been great, again, for washing clothes and also washing myself. A flat folding razor, Avid razor, along with the Avid shaving lotion. I've shaved with that either on the campsite or in a bothy. Then I have a folding toothbrush and a half-finished small tube of toothpaste, which again works well. What else have I got in here? I've also got in here the my shaving mirror, which is the Star Flash in signalling mirror. So that's quite a useful little thing. It's certainly good enough for seeing your reflection of your face when you do a shave, seeing the reflection of the parts you can't see to see if there's ticks there, and also signalling for help should you have to do so. And that's in my wash kit. And my only concession really to smelling a bit nicer, I've got a bit of roll-on deodorant, and I think I could probably manage without that deodorant. Although my wife might have objected if I didn't have that. I've also had a small little glass bottle of lavender essence, pure lavender oil rather, and that actually has been very, very useful. It stops the itching of bites, and also makes it detracts midges and so on. So I've dabbed that a few times around my neck and so on when the midges have been around. They're certainly not around much at the moment on the East Coast, so I haven't used it much in the last few days, but certainly the first few days I was dabbing that on my bites, tick bites and midge bites to stop the itching, which certainly worked. So that's my wash kit, and that fits into a very small, tiny little, in fact, little bag, and the only thing I'd leave behind at the moment would be the deodorant. Then let's have a look at the cooking gear. As you know, I was trying out two types of cook gear. I tried out the jet boil system, which is a fairly large item, and I sort of felt possibly a bit heavy for my needs. I probably would have still gone for the titanium cooker and gas, purely for familiarity and convenience. But the most successful thing, I think, that has worked with that, and also with the white box meth stove, which I've got at the moment, is the cozy kit. And this cozy kit material is is getting very, very popular. I noticed quite a few people using it for windshields as well as a pot cosy. But when I used it with I made one for the jet boil system, so I boiled the jet boil system, added my dehydrated food, and then I just turned it off and slid the cosy kit straight over the top. And in this current cooking system I'm using, which is the white box meth stove, I put enough meths in there to obviously boil the water. I do exactly the same thing, add the food, and then lift up the MSR pot that I've got, the MSR kettle, and slide that into the cosy kit which I've made for that as well. Fold that over, put something on the top to keep it shut, as it were, and 15-20 minutes later the food is still piping hot, but it has completely reconstituted. So what I would say the success of the trip from a practical use experimenting point of view has been the cosy kit material, and I would thoroughly suggest people to look into that, because it's very, very cheap, it's very, very light, and it certainly saves you an enormous amount of fuel. Talking of which, the fuel for the meths kit, I put I had 750 millilitres of fuel, which I put into a cig bottle, which made it very heavy. That certainly added to my load when I changed over in Aviemore. Whether it was a good thing to do or not, I'm not too sure. I'm sort of guessing now, really. I've probably used less than half of that meths. So I could have just managed with one meths bottle, which would have been lighter and smaller, and obviously less weight as well, certainly for the second part of the week, and that would last me the week quite happily. So I would change my cig bottle and leave it in the normal standard meths bottle and take a risk, I think, on that, because you don't really chuck your rucksack around that much. You're going to break a bottle. But I was a bit nervous about carrying that much liquid, so I put it in the cig. So I'd swap the cig bottle and leave it for the basic meths kit. The white box stove has been very, very efficient. As I say, I don't want to go on about that too much. The windshield that comes with it, the very, very light aluminium, it's important to make that as tight as you can to your pan set for efficient heat. But the heat I notice is so fierce, actually it's melted part of the windshield. So just something worth noting, really. But very, very good piece of kit, very light. I've got two platypus bottles, 1 litre platypus bottles, which I find I go through almost 2 litres of water at night when I'm in camp. So I tend to keep those fairly topped up as I get close to camp. The reason I use 2 1 litres rather than a 2 litre is that a 2 litre bottle in the rucksack is a peg to get into the right place, and you end up folding the bottle in half almost. And I find 2 1 litre bottles sit very easily on the top of the rucksack, so that's been efficient use of bottles. So that's the reason I use those. And obviously I've got the bladder mouth system as well, which keeps me hydrated as I go along. Still in the kitchen, as I say, we had the MSR kettle, and I've got the MSR mug as well, which is a favourite, so I don't leave home without that, and that's fine. And I've also got the folding titanium spork as well, which is fabulous, if nothing else, that it just folds up and sits inside the mug, and the whole thing sits inside the MSR pot. What else on the kitchen front? I've got a spark igniter, which has lit the meths, and the meths certainly has to be at body temperature if possible. It will light first time. If it's cold, you need to warm the meths up first. That's when you have problems lighting the meths. And because of the nature of the cooking system, I've also brought a pot holder with me as well to hold the MSR pot, because you can't cook with it and leave the handles out. I've got the folding plate. Interestingly, actually, I haven't used the folding plate since Rose left. So I think probably the situation is there. I could manage quite happily with the one pot and eat out of that, as I have done. So the folding plate is useful when there's 2 people sharing food. So I could manage without that, but I'd miss it because it's one of my favourite little kitchen accessories. And what else have I got on the? I've got a brew kit, and my brew kit in a small bag consists of milk powder, a bag of milk powder, and a bag of real tea. And then I use, to brew my tea, I use a mug mate, MSR mug mate, which is like a mesh pot that sits inside a standard mug. and you just put a spoonful of tea in there, and that brews the tea beautifully. The reason I use loose tea is it's lighter generally than tea bags, and tea bags aren't biodegradable. But the tea is, so it's. I feel like it's more environmentally friendly to tip the tea out and spread that on the ground afterwards, and then wash the filter out. Although the downside is the filter is a bit of a lump because of the wings on it, the ears, if you like, that stop it falling inside the mug. What I tend to do is sort of fold up the plastic bag of milk and shove it inside that to reduce the bulk of that. That's my little brew pack, if you like, that sits next to my cooker in my rucksack. After that, really, you're on to accessories. One thing that has worked for me is the Gerwool Extra Cream and the Gerwool Refreshing Cream. The extra cream is great in the mornings. You just put that on your feet, and it sort of massages them and prepares them for the day's walking. The refreshing cream is great at the end of the day when you can manage to wash your feet off, dry them off, and then put the cream on. It gives them a nice pungent, fresh, cleaning smell, and also it's a nice sensation to massage your feet. So. Very pleased with that gear, and that's inside a larger, a medium-sized Alexac bag, just to keep that safe in case that explodes and you want cream all over the rest of your clothes. Now the rest of the stuff I've got is really to do with the camera gear and recording equipment. I've got one small bag which contains my mains charger and a charging set for AA batteries. I use 2700 milliamp hour batteries, and I carry six spare, I beg your pardon, six spare, which I recharged at B&Bs and so on as I went through. I probably could have managed without bringing the charger if I was just carrying the recorder. However, the little compact camera I've got, the Canon camera, has gone through probably 4 pairs of batteries, so I've had to recharge the batteries for those. Again, I could manage probably without that if I was just using the recorder, or obviously no recorder at all. So that would be one set of toys. The camera and the recorder obviously weigh a certain amount as well, and they're in padded bags. And I've also got the mobile phone and the mobile phone charger, which is something else that I possibly could have managed without, as the charge on the phone has lasted much longer than before. But that's because I bought a new battery for it before I went out. Sorry, this is a bit of a monologue. What else? Oh yeah, the rest of the clothing gear, which I didn't discuss because it was buried underneath something else, was I've obviously got my waterproof jacket, which is the Montane Superfly. I've got some Berghaus full zip trousers. I like to have full cover and protection from the weather, really, so I'm happy with those. I've got a pair of sticky mitts and a pair of Trek Gore-Tex over mitts, which work well for keeping the hands warm and dry when obviously you need to protect your hands as well. And I've now reduced my headwear to the mountain hat, the low alpine, if you like, uniform mountain hat that everybody's got, and a couple of buffs as well, which works nicely for keeping the sun off my neck, as well as sort of a light headwear when I want it to. Actually, the other reason I've been using the buffs as well, which has proved very successful, is a blindfold. When I'm sleeping at night, I find it's so light, so late and so early that I just bunch it up and bring it down over my eyes as a blindfold, and it then enables me to sleep for much longer. So that's been a useful thing to do. What else is in that pocket? There is the toilet trowel with a pack of tissues, a lighter, and a small pot of hand gel. Obviously I've used that on a fairly daily basis, and that's all been fine. Gone to the toilet, burnt the paper, made sure the fire's out, and then covered it all back up again, then washed my hands in a little squirt of hand gel, which is good. I've got the first aid kit, which I'll discuss in a second as regards contents. What else is in that bag? I think that's it, actually. And then I bought a Glengarry, a Scots hat, right at the beginning of the trip, which I've sort of worn partly, which I needn't have done, but it's been a bit of fun, so that's a bit of fun, really. Right, this bag of bits, before I discuss the first aid kit, let's tip that out. I've got a puncture repair kit for the Thermarest, which is just a very small tube of glue, which is actually fine. I'm happy with that. Some gaff tape, A small little wrap of gaff tape, which has been useful. I've used that on a couple of things, and also for posting back parcels. Some spare tissues, which is may or may not be useful. So there's a little tube of DEET here as well, insect repellent, which I have used. A small, I've got the obviously emergency whistle, and I've got a small little Petzl E-light as my main light. I probably could have managed without that, to be honest. I've got a very, very tiny battery cell light inside the first aid kit. I could have managed quite happily with that, because the only time I've really needed a light is when I'm looking for something in a tent. So that could have gone. I've got a spare set of shoelaces. I had an instance once years ago when I bust some shoelaces, and I had to walk several miles with no shoelaces on one foot, which was very uncomfortable. So ever since then I've carried shoelaces, some lip balm, a head net, which I haven't needed, small penknife, and a few little accessories like a bit of shock cord to repair things, and these little toy carabiners, which are just useful for clipping things on. And then the last piece is I'll carry usually a long length of cord, sort of paracord, as light as possible really, about 10 metres worth. And what I tend to do with this is, more often than not, is tie it to a tree in the morning, and then tie the other end via a couple of poles to a peg, and make a washing line, a drying line. And if anything does need airing or drying, I sling it over that. And I've used that a few times. Also, in an emergency, I could cut some guys from that if I needed to really tie the tent down, or I suppose I could actually use that for laces, so I could get rid of those laces. Then the item that I haven't used has been my sunglasses, much to my wife's amusement, so the sunglasses could go. But in there, is there anything I would leave behind? Probably not, actually. I'm quite happy with that little bag of bits. So that's that. Anything else? Yes, the chargers. I've covered all the manual stuff. So the only thing is the first aid kit. Now, what am I carrying in the first aid kit? Hang on a second, I'll just get that out. So it's not vast, but in it I have got a one rolled up bandage, a pile of the type of plasters that you cut off to suit the width that you want, a small pair of scissors, a small pair of tweezers with a point on the end, which have been absolutely vital to get rid of these ticks, a tick remover for the bigger ticks, a tube of antiseptic cream, 2 packs of Nurophens, which I haven't needed at all, which has been brilliant this year, and some Menolin dressing, and a tube of a roll of sticky tape, medical sticky tape, and also the clicker, the one that stops you itching as well, which I sometimes use, as well as the lavender if I'm really bad. And that's pretty well all that's in there. I think there's some paracetamol there as well, yeah. And that's it, really. Not a vast amount, and more than happy with what I've been carrying. So that's turned into a bit of a monologue, really. I'm sorry it's been so long. I hope people have found that of some use. I don't think there's anything else here that I haven't mentioned. And certainly I reckon I could get the base weight of my rucksack down more to more like 6 or 7k, excluding food and fuel and water. At the moment it's around the 9-10k, I think, which is respectable, but it certainly could be a bit better. The other thing, of course, is the Pinnacle rucksack. I haven't mentioned that. Very light rucksack, performed brilliantly well. No complaints really, apart from the front pocket on it could do with being fractionally bigger. The Trek rucksack, I think the previous model really, had a bigger front pocket, and it was also had some mesh in the pocket. And I found that it's a bit of a squeeze to get all my waterproof gear in there and the toilet trowel and the first aid kit. It could do with a little bit more room. So that would be my only improvement on the rucksack. But otherwise, it's carried the weight very, very well. And performed beautifully. So that's about it from here, which is not our last night, but it may as well be, because it's just a long walk through the Fetteresso forest now, through to Stonehaven. So I'll probably pick up tomorrow as we set off, and then fill you in as we get to the end, and the final end of the challenge.
concludes this part of The Tale of Two Podcasters from the 2007 RAB TGO Challenge, brought to you by theoutdoorsStation.co.uk.